Akila. Hello. This is Harika.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes,
How
yes.
are you, ma'am?
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you, ma'am. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine, ma. How are you? Very happy to see you.
Yes, ma'am. Precious executive mind. So many years since I saw you, ma'am. Very happy to see you.
Yes, yeah. How was life?
I have two kids. I have two kids.
Oh, grown up now.
Yes. She is my eldest one, ma'am. She was my teacher in college. She's my eldest.
Oh,
Hi, ma'am. She's my elder daughter, and I have a small baby.
unable to imagine you all.
How's college? How's college, ma'am?
ஒரே இங்க ஒரு கூத்தா நடக்குது.
Hello, sir.
Hello, ma. How are
Hi,
you?
sir. All good, sir. I'm fine, sir. How are you, sir? How's college? I'm gonna mute myself, sir. Children are around, so I'm just gonna mute myself, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma. Madam, Harita, madam.
Sir, சொல்லுங்க sir.
நீ அவங்களே ஆஃப் பண்ணி தண்ணி வச்சுக்கோங்க ஆன் பண்ணி
Mayappan Kumaran is there?
Jenny connected?
Yes, sir, he's there. Yeah.
Yes, I'm there, sir.
Jenny is
Okay.
connected?
Genesis, you're on the screen.
Okay, I'm not able to see. Okay.
I request Jenny Sissy to switch on her video and audio if she has joined the meeting.
Sir, Balaji sir.
Hello, madam. Yes.
Sir, நீங்க அவங்க ப்ரொஃபைல் வச்சிருக்கீங்கல்ல சார்?
இருக்கு மேடம்.
ஓகே சார். சொல்லி நாங்களும் சொல்ல வேண்டாம்ல, அதான் கேட்டேன்.
Yeah.
ஓகே. தேங்க் யூ.
Good morning, Kuda.
Good morning, Balaji.
VC sir is coming, no? Any idea about?
No, he didn't tell because sir is not giving a speech. So, sir did not tell anything about coming. Maybe because
Okay.
it's
Yeah. So shall we start then?
Kumar, may I?
Yes, ma'am. So good afternoon to all the participants who are present here. We welcome you on about our international webinar conducted by the Department of Business Law, School of Excellence in Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. The presenter will be joining soon, so we kindly request the participants to be patient and wait for us. And meanwhile, I'll be giving you a few general instructions. So kindly do not switch on your video and please mute your audio throughout the session. And kindly do not post any wishes messages in the chat box so that we don't miss on any important questions. And I would be taking up the questions towards the end of the session. So you could post any questions which you would have during the webinar in the chat box. It will be duly addressed. And yeah, like I said, meanwhile, don't switch on your video and don't unmute your audio so that doesn't cause a disturbance to the presenter. Thank you.
Janisha.
Hello, sir.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
How are you, sir? A pleasure seeing you.
Yeah. Seeing you after a long time.
Yes, 10 years exactly.
Hello, Jenny.
Hello, ma'am. Hi, ma'am. How are you?
How are you? Fine.
Good to see you all, ma'am.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
How are you?
Yeah, going on. You have a kid?
Yes, ma'am. I have a 6-year-old.
Okay. So it'd be very difficult, right?
You know, yeah, it's all right, ma'am. Manageable.
Yeah, manageable.
Please start the session, sir. Balaji, sir. Start the session, sir.
Yes. I think you can go. Yes.
I do apologize, all of you, that I'm not sure why I was not able to join earlier. But finally, I figured something is working now.
No issues.
No issues, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all, to the participants. We shall be starting the webinar now. And I would like to give you once more the general instructions for the webinar. So like I had already said, kindly do not switch on your audio and do not switch on your video as well. Kindly stay muted throughout the session. You can post any questions in the chat box. Kindly do not send any wishes in the chat box. So we will take up all your queries towards the end of the session. And we look forward to hosting you in this webinar. And first, I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Balaji, sir, to give the welcome address for the webinar. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Mehapan. I welcome you all for the special lecture program on India to UK transition with reference to commercial law practice, organized by the Department of Business Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, on this 16th August 2020. A warm Good afternoon to one and all. I welcome our Honorable Professor Dr. T.S.N. Shastri, the Vice Chancellor of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, the distinguished speaker of today's event, Ms. Janisha, a dual qualified lawyer, in India and abroad, England and Wales, a solicitor at Law and Lawyers, London, UK, and also our beloved School of Excellence in Law alumni. My esteemed colleague Dr. Kumudaratna, HOD, Department of Business Law, Dr. Harita Devi, HOD, Department of Environmental Law, my esteemed colleague Dr. Ranjit Abraham, and the moderator, Mr. Mayappan Kumaran. I also welcome our honorable members of the syndicate and the academic senate of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, the registrar, the controller of examination, the director research and publication, and heads of all the departments and faculty members of the Law University and the affiliated colleges, advocates, participants, invitees, distinguished guests, and my dear administrative staff. It gives me once again a great honor to welcome you all to the occasion on the special lecture organized by the Department of Business Law of the Law University. Today we have our distinguished Ms. Janisha, and I told you, a proud alumni of the School of Excellence in Law, and she is a solicitor in England and Wales, working in London. She is a member of the Conveyancing Quality Scheme, which is recognized the quality standard for residential conveyancing practices in the UK. And after she graduated from the School of Excellence in Law, she worked as a judicial clerk for the Honorable Judges of the Madras High Court and then practiced in the Madurai bench of Madras High Court before moving to UK. The faculty members of the School of Excellence in Law and the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University are extremely proud to hear that our alumni, who is also actively involved in providing legal advices to the Tamil women in UK and to members of her local community, and also been involved with charities and advocating rights of the disabled and mentoring small-time offenders in their transition back to normal civic life in UK. On behalf of the faculty members of the School of Excellence in Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, I cordially welcome Ms. Janisha to this event. Welcome, ma'am. Next, I am very much pleased to welcome our Honorable Professor Dr. T.S.N. Shastri, the Vice Chancellor of the University, who is also currently the President of the Vice President of the prestigious Indian Society of International Law, New Delhi. And Professor Shastri is known for the intellectual think tank. And he has authored and published 4 books and 75 research papers to his credit. And our VC is always student friendly and his untiring works for the welfare of the students community. He constantly thinks in a different aspect to give the maximal benefit to the students and the faculty members of the university. With a view in tune with the clinical legal education, he established the AIR Cafe, which is an high-tech digital suite, in February 2019 for the benefit of the students. And to also train the students this legal skill-based education with a bare minimum fee. Due to his deliberate, constant efforts, we very soon will have a small hospital, a bank with ATM facility, a post office, and a cooperative stationery stores within the university campus for the benefit of all the students and staff of this university. On behalf of all the faculty members, students, and organizers, and all other participants, I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. Next, I welcome my esteemed colleague Dr. Kumudaratna, HOD of the Business Law Department. And Madam Kumudaratna is a good teacher and known for her tech savviness in digital gadgets, which helps her a lot in these online classes programs. Moreover, she is a faculty member who is being in touch with almost all our School of Excellence in Law alumni, which is a good gesture, just to be followed by all the faculty members. I also welcome my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Harita Devi, HOD of the Environmental Law, and Dr. Ranjit Abraham, who are now part of the School of Excellence in Law UG committee, which is taking care of the administration of the School of Excellence in Law UG program. Both of them as a team contributed a lot to the smooth functioning of the School of Excellence in Law at this point of time. I also welcome Mr. Mayappan Kumaran for moderating this event. Once again, I welcome you all and thank the organizers for giving me another opportunity to deliver the welcome address on this occasion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Next, I would like to call upon Dr. Kumadaratna ma'am and Harita ma'am to give us the felicitation address for the program. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayappan Kumaran, and a very pleasant afternoon to everyone. HOD, I take the privilege of welcoming each and every one of you all with much pleasure to this international webinar on the topic India to UK Transition with reference to commercial law practice, organized by the Department of Business Law, School of Excellence in Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, under the auspices of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. T.S.N. Sastry. We, that is, Dr. Harita Devi, Dr. Ranjit Abraham, and myself in the Department of Business Law, thank you, Honored Vice Chancellor, sir, for allowing us to organize this webinar. And with your blessings, we are proceeding towards an absolute success of this webinar too, like the earlier webinar we conducted on the 5th of this month, August. And now I take very much, it's so joyful for me to welcome all the students of SOUL. I don't differentiate as, past students, alumni, present students, and future students also. Once a child enters SOUL as a law student, forever, for life, it is a soulite. So in that way, I welcome all the students from the pioneering batch to this webinar. I think you'll have a wonderful time in SOUL again, but only thing is now the premises is this WebEx meeting platform, and which is very unique. And we all should enjoy Jenny's speech. Now, coming to the topic of this webinar, when Jenny told us that this is the topic she would like to talk on, I was very impressed because this topic I think would be of utility, benefit for 5 categories of people at least. Who are the 5 categories? The first one, of course, is the present students who are aspiring to go abroad, study, and maybe practice there for some time and come back. For them, when Jenny talks about her personal experience, hands-on experience, what is the procedural aspects, what are the glitches they might face, how to prepare, what they will to be helpful for them. That's what I feel. That's the first category. And the second category will be, again, present students who have no idea, who don't have a thought of going abroad and studying and all that. When they attend this webinar, maybe it will ignite a spark, or it's like putting a seed in them, and it will, come up with they wanting to study abroad and practice abroad. That is one category. And apart from that, now present students is over. What is the third category is the present generation of lawyers, practicing lawyers. Maybe they've completed the degree 2 or 3 years back, now they're practicing actively. So they'll be under the impression that it is too late to go abroad, study or practice there, see what life is there, and then come back here. But when you see about Jenny's experience later on, we will understand that even for law practitioners, maybe within 5 years of finishing their basic degree, they still have the scope of going abroad. Maybe not studying, they can even practice there. Should be telling what are the modalities for becoming a solicitor, and try their experience that and come back here to India again. So for practicing lawyers, also young generation lawyers, this will be of very much benefit. And fourth category, of course, is my fraternity lecturers. When we get to know personally from Jenny what are the procedural aspects and what are the things that the students should expect about going there, then instead of just giving them an advice, we'll be able to give them an advice in much detail. That will be of very much benefit to the lecturers in helping the students more. And we think that is all the category is. But the fifth category which came to mind is the passive audience of this webinar. See, now it's a webinar when students are seeing through laptop or notebook, maybe parents or letters would be there. So when they hear passively about what's being talking here by Jenny, they might get an interest to send their, offsprings, their issues abroad so that they can study there and come back. Now, when I tell all this, you'll be wondering why I'm so much insisting on, people going abroad, studying there or practicing there. One reason is when I had finished my PhD, maybe 20 years back, my dad told me that, see here, whatever studies, everything is over. So if you want, I'll send you to UK, you can study further and come back. Because my relatives were also there. But at that time, due to inexperience, I told, no, Pa, I want to study only Indian law, and I finished off with that. But now that situation was totally different, because when I was doing PhD, people would look at me strangely and ask, "Oh, PhD is possible in law." That was the situation, and the percentage of female studying law also maybe in 5 maximum. But now you see, equal or more girls. So now the situation is totally changed. So that's why I feel when students go abroad, study or practice there and come back, their language would have stepped up definitely. The vocabulary, the language, the diction, the pronunciation would have gone up. And their drafting skills and the exposure they get, everything will be a step up for them than what they will experience to the exposure they get only in India here. That is why I think people who have the inclination, who can go abroad, maybe 2 or 3 years they should spend there and come back, so that it will be very helpful to them. They'll stand apart in the crowd when they do that. So this topic, I believe, will be of very much use, not only to our students, the students of the affiliated colleges, our teaching fraternity in the affiliated colleges, and also the students who have come registered from throughout India, north also. So for all of them, this topic should be of much utility. Now next is, I want to reminisce about
கன்ஃபார்ம் பண்ணேன். அது நீங்க வாங்க சார், நம்ம வீடு அட்டாச் தான், எப்போ வேணாலும் எடுத்துக்கலாம்.
Yes, thank you. So Jenny's, times with us. Usually when I talk about a student, reminisce about the student's times with us, it will be more majorly related to the campus, those 5 years they were with us and all that. But Jenny is a special exception. How means my interaction with her in the university during her 5 years here was sort of like minimal only, because for one reason, she had a very, soft smile and a very placid demeanor. But consciously or unconsciously, she'll maintain a distance from the lecturers. That's what I felt. And her assignments, everything, she'll submit in time. She was a very studious person and all that. Though she maintained a distance with the lecturers, when you look at the friend circle that she had in her class, she was very garrulous. She had a lot of friends in her class. But she was a mild person when it came to lecturers. That's what I thought. 5 years over, she went away, and she was one of the students, that's all. Then, after 2 years or something, Jenny must be knowing the duration. I don't remember that much. One evening, late evening, I'm getting a call, unknown number, and when I take the call, Jenny's telling, "Ma'am, this is me. Sorry, I'm calling so late because now only I came from office." And then I was just quiet about it. Then it was a situation where she had a happy incident happening in her life, a life-turning incident, and she told me about it. That's also usual. But she started telling me about her emotions, her feelings, her fears, her thoughts about the situation. I heard out very softly, I mean, without interrupting and all that. Then I gave her positive feedback and all that. After the conversation is over, I was really touched, because many a times there will be some person next to us. We won't think much about the person. We won't think that the depth of the feeling or the care or the respect we wouldn't recognize at all. After many years, some incident will happen. That's when we realize, oh my God, this person has so much respect, caring, affection for us. That was the situation of the call that Jenny made to me. I realized that she remembers in a very important moment. She's calling me and she's telling me about her feelings, thoughts, everything. It was very precious to me. Then now you would think that, okay, from that time onwards, we were, quite friendly and in touch and all that. That was not the case. That was the only call. After that, like Facebook media, she posts something, I post something. That was the limit, no conversations at all. Then maybe another 2 years back, again, Jenny only should know the timing, the date. Mid-morning, I'm getting a call from Jenny, and she tells, "Ma'am, I'm here." By then, she had gone to London. "Ma'am, I'm here. Tomorrow I'm leaving. I want to see you. And I want to take you out for breakfast." Then I said, okay, it was quite early, but because she has to leave on that day and she has got agreed. So she came here with another classmate, a batchmate of hers, and he chatted with me for half an hour, and that's it. But she called me, she wanted to see me, and she took me out also. That again, it's an incident which shows me the depth of affection, care, regard, and affection that she has for the tutors. And another thing I noticed meanwhile was she was friendly with not her classmates. She's a person who's indiscriminate. She makes friendships with people irrespective of the age and all that. And she's got friends, close friends, best friends, and all in her seniors in Seoul. I know that. And also from maybe a couple of junior batches also. So that's very nice of her. All this, I came to understand that, yes, this is a unique bond. But till now, what I have told you is always Jenny calling me and, okay, am I accepting it? But then there was some misunderstanding on my part regarding Jenny and another friend. And I thought, okay, this is over, cut off and all that. Of course, their number was in my mobile phone. Then on 5th of August, we had another like alumni, Deepika, another child of ours. She came and spoke about aerospace law. The moment it was fixed, the one person, the one face that came to my mind to share this happy news was Jenny Shaw. I was really surprised how suddenly I want to, share this news first with her. Then I messaged her saying that Deepika is going to talk and all that. And her reply message almost immediately was what, she said, Ma'am, I'm so glad you messaged me. That was when I realized that the depth of affection, respect, all that, it is mutual. Even others, why should her face come to my mind first when an alumni is coming to talk here? And I would like to conclude by saying that any relationship between a tutor and a thought, it's very special, and it's a lifelong bond. It never comes to an end. Thank you, Jay, for having so much respect, love, affection, care, concern for each of your tutors. And we all, Jenny, each one of us, wish you the very best in your life always. Thank you everyone for listening to me. Now I invite my colleague, Dr. Harita Devi, to felicitate Jenny Shaw.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very touching. I will definitely remember this for a really, really long time coming. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
With anybody, but here it's a special moment. I should say publicly.
That was very touching, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. A very good afternoon to one and all joined here. It's a topic, India to UK transition. Yeah. So let me start with a saying. திரைக்கடலோடியும் திரவியம் தேடும். We all know that traveling abroad is a dream for everyone. In that case, it's about pushing your limits and venturing beyond your comfort zone. The quote goes, do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. I think it will apply to our speaker today and a proud alumni of Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. I'm happy to share that I think I too am very, very feeling happy that I have taught her, the speaker today. Now, when we take as a graduate, as a law graduate, it's everyone's dream or every student's inspiration and a question as what to do further. It's also a dream for many to go abroad and practice. And due to globalization, this travel has become a necessity today. Multinational corporations need law experts both in the country of incorporation and in India as well. So every student must know, and that's the whole idea of this webinar, which is already mentioned by our beloved HOD, Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am. In fact, when we speak about travel, travel is not a reward for working, it's education for living. Travel makes you realize that no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. Life begins the at the end of your comfort zone. That's my whole idea of felicitating you all. Learn to travel, travel to learn. In fact, this webinar, by hearing to the speaker Jenny Shaw, if you look into her CV, a short CV, I'm not going to repeat anything, just if you look into that from July 2010 to 2019, it's her travel history that has made today stand here and speak for our audience as a special speaker. So I wish her all the best, and I remember her as a student, a very polite student, I suppose. I have never seen her fighting or arguing or anything like that. But it's sweet to see her stand in such a big position and proudly say, I'm the alumni of School of Excellence in Law. Surely, this webinar, after hearing, will give more insights to people who want to travel and who want to study abroad and be practicing in that country. And the surprise I would like to give to all audience here is that she's also the mother of a 6-year-old kid. So managing a kid and office and at the same time doing a webinar like this is a hectic task, I suppose, because I can understand as a mother of 2 kids. So let me end by saying that travel leaves you speechless. Then turns you into a storyteller. The life you have led doesn't need to be the only life you have. So let's hear to her and let's the students be benefited more by understanding that going abroad and studying is a good task and it can be achieved by listening to the speaker today. All the best to Janisha, and I welcome you all, and I thank our Honorable Director Balaji sir and Professor Shastri sir, our Vice Chancellor, for allowing us and permitting us and doing this webinar a successful one. Thank you.
Thanks again, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Now I kindly request Janisha ma'am to start the presentation.
Thank you, Mayappan. A very good afternoon to everyone here. I would first like to extend my thanks for this platform to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Shastri, to Kumula ma'am, who invited me to share my journey so far, if I may say so, to Professor Dr. Balaji, Professor Dr. Harita ma'am, and also to Professor Dr. Ranjit sir, whom I haven't interacted yet today. But I have to start by saying it's an absolute pleasure coming back to your roots. Revisiting your roots is immense joy, and I'm so happy that I'm here this morning. And it is even more special because it's exactly 10 years since I left the university. It's a decade since I graduated. So it's almost like a milestone to mark that. And I am extremely humbled and pleased to be part of this webinar today. So to start, as you're all aware, my topic is India to UK, the transition with reference to a commercial legal practice. So to get to that, I will probably have to give you a brief idea of the I'm sorry, I'm going to just try and share my screen. There was a technical hitch, so it was not meant to start as we thought, but I'm going to try and share my screen in a minute. Abhishek, could you please share the PPT for me?
Abhishek, Bhagavati, please screen sharing.
Oh, Bhagavati, please
She's
do.
doing it now. She's doing it now.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
She's doing it now.
So if we can compare India versus UK, almost every stalwart in the history of India has gone abroad, as more specifically so to UK, and they have been barristers, like take from Gandhi, Nehru. They have all been stalwarts educated in the UK. So there is a dream somewhere in the mind of almost every student, I would say, that you look up to them and you think, oh, maybe one day I will just go and visit that place where some great people have lived and studied. My father actually did exactly like how ma'am said. He offered me to send abroad after my 5 years, but I refused, saying if I'm going to practice law in Madurai, where I am from, why go abroad and study? I was not really academic, so I actually refused that opportunity. But life and God has different plans. So here I am, sat in the London, and it's been nearly 8 years since I stepped here. And being a first generation lawyer, the transition was hard professionally. And personally, it always is different, difficult on different levels. But professionally, it was really hard figuring out where to start, because I just found myself completely alien with a 5-year law degree, which is that is all you want in India, but that was not enough to put me on the first step in a career path in the UK. So once we've in India, we obviously have different routes of doing law. You can do like a graduate entry, and then you can switch to a 3-year law course, or you can just finish your schooling and get straight in. I know there are like since I left India, there has been so many different new courses with combination of subjects. So once we finish that, if you are getting into practice, you just get enrolled and get straight on into practice. Or the options are like you can become an in-house counsel, you can go into teaching, enlighten more students. There are other options too, like one of my own batchmates, he's in the JAG, in the armed forces. So I did try that too before I came here. I wasn't as successful as him. That's a different story. But there are quite the unconventional routes as well, even in India, which not many are aware of. So those options are there. If you come here to the UK, then the options are manifold. Too many that sometimes it can get mind-boggling, but I will try and lay them out as best as I can, so that it's of benefit, as ma'am said, to the 5 categories of people, and even more if that is possible at all. So once some students do come here straight for their graduate level studies. So right after school, they do come here and they do their 3-year undergraduate law degree. So say you have an option of doing that, or you could do a master's, finish your law degree in your home country and then come here for your master's. So ultimately, some people come here just for the experience, like widening their horizons, get more expertise in their area of interest, and then I might want to go back to their own country, or just go back to their own area of practice in their home jurisdiction. But some might want to gain experience in a wider area. Some might want to just branch out more. So the options in that case is like, if you're doing an undergraduate as straight after school, then many universities do have like a work experience break. So you can take a break here in between, try and get an internship, legal preferably. But the best thing is sometimes they would even consider non-legal, as long as you can apply that work experience into a legal scenario later on. Then you could get into other fields of law, as I would be briefing very shortly. So what advantage, next slide please, Bhavati. The advantage we Indians have is that we have a common law system. So there are some people who come from civil law jurisdictions and they do struggle to grasp the concept of common law and also to apply it in practice. So that is definitely an edge for us, because it is so much easier to adapt from the Indian law to the laws in the UK. So the sources of law, as you can see, it's very similar to what we are used to right from our student days. So constitution, written or unwritten as the case is, legislation, judicial precedent, which we again give a lot of importance to, custom, convention, and international law. Moving on, this is a structure of the court's hierarchy. I will definitely not bore you with a history of courts lesson. No offense, but I know it could be a dry subject. But it is really important to gain an understanding of where and how things function. So I did not realize it back as a student, but I do so now. So you can see if it is a criminal case, it starts with the magistrate's court, moves on to a crown court, or if it's serious enough, it goes directly to a crown court. Any appeals goes on to the criminal division of the Court of Appeal, and then ultimately to the Supreme Court. If it is a civil matter, depending on the nature of the matter, it can go on to one of the tribunals, which could be employment, immigration, and the like. Or if it's like a money claim or something, it starts in the county courts, and it moves on to the High Court, which again has 3 divisions: family, Queen's Bench, Chancery, depending again on the area of law that is involved. Any appeal goes on to the Court of Appeal, the civil division, and ultimately to the Supreme Court. And if there is anything that the Supreme Court cannot handle, then sometimes the European Court of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights, they would intervene. Again, this is just a brief idea. There are a lot of technicalities involved in which case goes to which court and all that. But I will leave the history of courts as of now here and move on to the most all-important maze that you would probably stumble into at some point of your life. So the career maze, navigating it, and then just finding the right way out can be daunting, especially for a fresh graduate or even for a newly qualified person. It can be daunting. So the options in the UK, I've just laid out some of the options. It is a very exhaustive list. I would not be able to cover them all, but these are the most popular ones. So you could become a barrister, become a solicitor, a chartered legal executive, a licensed conveyancer, a paralegal, a judge, a court clerk, and then there's something called an Office of the Immigration Services Commissioner, trademark or a patent attorney, mediator, arbitrator, coroner, and obviously all other supportive roles like legal assistants or being legal secretaries. So here, as you can see, this when you come into a new place and you're like, oops, that is a lot, because you study law, you become a lawyer, simple as that. And then when you have to choose a specific area or to qualify in, and also it doesn't stop there, because I know things are evolving globally, but here it's very specific. So if you're into property, you're into property. If you're into criminal, you're literally into criminal. You don't do other areas of law. So it's extremely specialized, and sometimes that just finding the area, if you do have a clear idea, that is well and good. But sometimes if you're like a blank state, maybe even a blank state is good, but if you're confused between 2 and 3 options, then it might get a little difficult. But the first step is to maybe decide what you want to become. Do you want to qualify as a barrister? Then the route is different. If you want to qualify as a solicitor, then the route is different. You have to take into consideration a lot of things. The major things is how much time can you give to a particular qualification, how much money can you spend on a particular qualification, because I have to admit, this is quite a plan. You need to make sure you are planned for all of it in terms of time, money, and effort. So irrespective of what field, what area of practice you want to enter into, professional conduct is extremely important. So as we are all aware, we lawyers are looked high in our professional demeanor, and we have to uphold that at all times. So there are different regulatory authorities for each profession that you choose, like each career option you choose. So as you can see from the slide, if you are a solicitor, I'm going to be talking more about solicitor mainly because I have personal hands-on experience, and also that seems to be more of a popular route than becoming a barrister, for reasons that I will elaborate later. So the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, commonly called as the SRA, is the board for the solicitors, and there is a bar standards board for barristers. This conduct, irrespective of what you choose to qualify as, it is expected of students, like literally from the very beginning of your legal career. So it is quite important that a law student, irrespective of what they want to do, or even if they just want to continue do a degree and go back home, it is extremely important that you exhibit these ethics and conduct all through your career. So we'll try and talk about the routes for students. If you come into the UK for your undergrad or for your masters, then you would ideally want to get some experience from practical knowledge of the functioning of the legal system here. So an internship would be ideal. So it can be a paid internship or an unpaid internship. I do have to tell you, competition is fierce. So the chances of if sometimes if you are unable to get a paid internship, which is ideal, I would highly suggest just go into any volunteering role, because there are loads of voluntary roles, and the experience gained out of any voluntary roles is deemed very, I mean, they hold it in high regard. So they do not disregard it saying, oh, it's a voluntary role, but because it doesn't count that way. All that counts is what you learned out of your role. So if you can take out something that you learned and apply it to a scenario, even in a different kind of practice, as long as you can demonstrate that you are able to do that, that is a very important thing. So the universities, okay, to clarify, I have not done my master's, so I am using my borrowed knowledge here. Universities do have career fairs. They have like a specific advisors within the universities to offer career guidance. And they have tie-ups with law firms, wherein the law firms offer open houses. So the students get a chance to get in and see the functioning, like the day-to-day functioning of a law firm. Then once, these are some of the options. And if you do manage to get an internship through one of those or any sort of work experience, that would be great. And then if you are doing a undergraduate in law, you would have to do something called a law practice course. So this is shortly called an LPC. So you have to again go into an university, get yourself enrolled and do this LPC. So this is needed if you want to qualify yourself as a solicitor, as a legal executive. And then once you're done with your LPC, you'll have to go into a training contract. Again, competition is intense, so you have to make sure you stand out. And if you do want to become a barrister, you would have to do a BPTC. That is, all these courses keep evolving over time. They keep transferring from regime to regime. So the BPT is currently going to change into a BPC, which and then if you've done a BPTC, then you have to do a pupillage, which is the practical work experience. So, the route for foreign qualified lawyers. So, one good thing is that we being a common law, we Indians being a common law jurisdiction, it is easier in terms of grasping the concepts of laws of England. So, if you are already registered, like enrolled in India, then you can qualify here as a solicitor through the SRA's guidelines and their requirements. So the options are, if you are already a lawyer or in a different jurisdiction, you could become an in-house legal counsel in any establishment. So if you are such a person, then you don't have to get yourself regulated or qualified. You can just go on with your job because the particular organization has hired you directly. But if you do want to become a solicitor or a barrister, then there are exams, training periods and things like that. Or if you would prefer to be a paralegal or a legal secretary just to get some initial experience and then decide what to go on, again, you don't need to be regulated. There are some cases when you have to register yourself as a RFL, which is a registered foreign lawyer. So that is not needed, for example, if you're in an in-house capacity. But if you're going to be in a managerial position, then that is mandatory. Again, as you noticed, there are previously I did tell you about legal executive, then an OISE. So these are again specialist conveyancer. So what difference is that from being a solicitor is that a legal executive, you have to get qualified, but you can only do up to certain levels, whereas they can practice property, for example. However, they cannot step beyond a certain role. So it is very limited in terms of what you can do once you qualify as a legal executive. If you, for example, you decide to qualify as a conveyancer, again, you can just do residential and like leasehold and freehold, but you cannot progress to you cannot step into the next level. You just can do that. You cannot do anything else. The same applies for immigration. You have, when you qualify there, again, you are restricted. Whereas if you're a solicitor, you can literally switch practice areas. You can you are eligible like to appear in courts, not the higher courts, but the lower courts. And if you're a barrister, again, you can appear in all the courts in the UK. So we are going to deal with the SRA principles. So anybody who will be regulated by the SRA, they have to adhere to these principles. So this is like the most important is at all times you have to make sure you are upholding the rule of law and the proper administration of justice. And just very briefly, uphold you have to act in a way that you uphold public trust and confidence in you and also in the legal system. Act with independence, honesty, integrity, encourage equality, diversity, and inclusion, and always act in the best interest of each client. So this takes us to the SRA Code of Conduct, wherein you again have to act in a way that helps the public to uphold their trust, and you have to act fairly. So there are certain guidelines that solicitors have to follow at all times. So dispute resolution is encouraged before you go into head-on legal battles. You have to make sure the client money and assets are protected at all times. Conflict of interest is a really serious place wherein, because you because of the SRA's principles, you have to make sure you act in the client's best interest at all times. So conflict of interest is really important. Client identification, cooperation, and accountability, service and competence. So you have to ensure that you once you become, or even when you start thinking of becoming a solicitor, you have to train yourself to make sure you comply with all these codes of conduct and the principles at all times. So now we are getting into the all important how to qualify. So what is the practical do's and that you need to do before you qualify as a solicitor? So the current regime is the Qualified Lawyer Transfer Scheme. Earlier it used to be QLTT, now it has become QLTS, and it is going to change very soon into something called SQE. So it's a solicitor's qualifying examination, which is set to commence in September 2020, but this is not set in stone, so it might be later, especially with the way things are going on in the current world. Delays are expected. So right now, if anyone is thinking of qualifying as a solicitor, I would suggest act really fast, because the SQA is new, so no one really knows what the exam structure is going to be. So it's easier to kind of prepare with a tried and tested method than to be thrown into the first batch of not really knowing what's going to come up with. So I do personally right now at this point know at least a handful of people from our own institution, SOEL, who are trying to qualify. So the first step is a multiple choice test. So this, at least about 5 years back, anyone wanting to take the qualifying test had to travel into London, which was not ideal in terms of figuring out visas, booking your tickets, figuring out your accommodation and things like that. It was a very expensive process as well. But now the good news is you can do these tests in online. All you have Chennai has a center, Bangalore has centers, so it's become so much easier to appear for this first test. All you have to do is make sure you prepare for yourself for these exams. So there are 11 legal practice areas, including torts, contracts, civil, criminal litigation. You'll definitely have to do history of courts and European Union laws, then you do have, so these are like some of the main practice areas. You do have to do accounts, which I struggled a lot with because I'm not from an accounting background, but solicitor's account is a mandatory subject. And there is also tax. These are areas that you cannot avoid. You'll have to deal with them. So the key is preparation, because if not everyone is going to be good at all areas of law, because your interest might be in a particular place, and you might think, oh, numbers, I always used to think, oh, numbers, I'm not good with numbers. But irrespective of what you personally prefer or like to go with, you will have to make sure you have a good understanding of all these 11 practice areas. So once you finish your practice, you have to demonstrate that you have you can apply this knowledge that you have learned out of the 11 practice areas, and you can apply it to the degree of a newly qualified solicitor. So that is how your test. So it's the test lasts about 5.5 hours. So it's split into 2 sessions, wherein you'll be tested on all the 11 areas. So you have 5 answers, and you have to choose the best possible answer. So you have to make sure the best outcome is reached. So this test, once you're done with this, only when you finish this MCT, you can go on to the next part of the exams. So for example, if you have done a 3 undergrad in the UK and you have done your LPC, there are criteria, but if you have done your LPC, then most times you are exempted from this MCT because you've already done your LPC. So depending on how you qualify, like which route you have initiated from, so this varies very slightly, but you have to make sure you are exempted before you decide to skip this process and apply for the next part of the exam. So the next part of the exam is the objective structural clinical examination. I know it sounds very complicated. This area is over 5 practice areas. So it's business, civil litigation, criminal litigation, property, wills, and probate. So these are the 5 key practice areas. And I do have to tell you, this is one of the toughest exams I have sat for because it happens over 6 days. So, and you're tested in all these 5 areas on legal writing, legal drafting, research, advocacy, client interviews, and attendance notes. So attendance note is something which I personally feel, in my practice time in India, that was not something that I was used to. So, again, it depends on what you have acquired, the skills that you have acquired through your practice, through your student days and all that. So again, practice is key because, like I first told, these exams do not come cheap. So you have to make sure you're adequately prepared. And also the money part is secondary. The first part is it's time consuming because these exams happen only twice a year. So you have to make sure, you fit into the right batch so that you can plan your career progression accordingly. So these exams, again, you have to practice and make sure you can convince the examiner that you have reasonably adequate skills to come out and practice in the UK. Earlier in the QLTT regime, you had to do an IELTS exam to prove that you have good English to even take the exams in the first place. But thankfully, that is redundant now. You don't have to do that. And again, you don't need any work experience to do this. So again, that is an advantage in this regime. All you have to do is prepare for the exams, do the exams. It's not mandatory that you have prior work experience. So once you do this, then you have to make sure all these exams are done. The exam results take a while. It takes nearly 3 months to come back. And once you're done, the next part would be to register with the Law Society. So, I mean, at this point, I'm actually really pleased to say I've been tutoring students with OSCE Smart, as you saw in the previous slide. So, mock sessions is really important. I'm not saying you have to take a service provider. If you have a good set of friends, if you're in good touch with your tutors, that is extremely helpful because they can point out things where you might, areas of which require a little bit more improvement, or they might give you suggestions. They might, because end of the day, it's all about practice, like the practicalities of practicing the legal profession. So if you have a really good set of friends and tutors, you could use their expertise, use their knowledge to help you to crack these exams. So the next steps would be to register yourself with a law society, and then you do have to have a practicing certificate which is valid at all times. So you can choose to, for example, if you feel you're not, you have qualified yourself as a solicitor. A lot of people do that even though they don't actually live or work in the UK, because it is an added advantage. So in case they are in a jurisdiction where people might come to them with potential legal issues requiring a solicitor, requiring a person who has got a knowledge of a different jurisdiction, this might come in handy. For example, if you are into corporate law, and many times the contracts are drawn, or if you're into arbitration and things like that, the laws of England and Wales, so that is a very preferred jurisdiction for a lot of international contracts and commercial issues. So at that point, you might think, I might have an added advantage if I do this dual qualification. So you might want to consider becoming dually qualified, even if you are predominantly functioning out of India or a different jurisdiction, but still have ties with the Western world. So that is something to consider. And the practicing certificate is important. So without a valid practicing certificate, even though you are qualified, you cannot practice. You cannot advise even. So if you do want to be, doing your, exhibiting your knowledge on a practical level, you do have to have a valid certificate. If you're found to be practicing without one, you could be penalized for that. Again, once you're qualified, the options are manifold. You could choose to be a sole practitioner, so you're your own boss. However, there are some cons to that, because professional indemnity insurance, which is a must, it's like a requirement without which you cannot set up any practice, that comes up quite high. So in case you're a sole practitioner, meeting the costs of the indemnity insurance might be difficult. So a lot of people tend to go and find employment. So like become a fee earner or a case handler. That is how they are referred to, because you earn for your firm, or you handle the firm's cases. So like for me, for instance, I'm a solicitor at the firm here, and I mean, they would refer to me as a fee earner. So you could become that. So you can again choose the area of law. I, for one, deal with property, but again, it's totally up to you. You have like a multitude of practice areas that you may wish to specialize in. By specialize, I mean you're not required to do a course or anything, but as long as you have experience in the area, that is good. So okay, fine, I have done my exams and I have qualified, I've started working. Do I stop there? No, the law doesn't require, I mean, it's not mandate, but it's advised that you do with something called continuing professional development. So you have courses offered throughout the year by the Law Society, by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority. You have webinars, you have day courses, you have conferences. You are, it's highly advised that, especially for newly qualified solicitors, that you keep topping up your knowledge, because the law, as we are all aware, keeps changing. It's a constantly evolving subject. So we have to make sure we are updated. So this used to be a mandate, but now you are advised to keep doing that. Many cases, if you are employed with a firm, they will actually keep sending you on a regular basis, because they want to keep up with the SRA standards, because they are regulated by them. And then you have an optional admission ceremony, which is the I wouldn't say equivalent of an enrollment, because enrollment is a mandate. That is, the admission ceremony is just for your own self. If you wish to take part in it, you can. So this is with regard to the solicitors, how to become a solicitor. So again, if you want to become a barrister, it's a whole totally different path that you'll have to take. So that is a 3-part process. So you have to finish your academic qualification. So if you do already have a degree in law, then that is fine. But there are people who might not have a degree in law, but who subsequently wish to become a barrister. They would have to do a law conversion course, or like it's called a GDL. And then once they have cleared that, they have to do a vocational training, and then this is pupillage. So this vocational thing is currently, as I said, it's a BPTC, Bar Professional Training Scheme course, sorry, but it's set to change really soon, like next month actually, and it's going to be a bar practice course. It's going to be termed a lot of things, and some of them are bar training course, bar vocational course, etc. So at this point, you have to also make sure you are becoming a member of one of the more really famous inns. Like there are 4 inns, so you have to make sure you have membership with one of them. Again, it is really hard, as in like a lot of applications come in each year, and so the whole process is quite strenuous, but if you have the will, you will get there. So this, once you've done that, once you've passed the academic stage and the vocational stage, you have to do something called a pupillage, and this has to be done within 5 years of the vocational training, and this pupillage is for a year. So just as I had mentioned earlier, there are time frames. For pupillage there is a time frame, but for the solicitors right now there is no time frame. So it is more easier, I would say, in terms of time frames, to qualify as a solicitor rather than as a barrister initially. But you could always become a solicitor, and then you can switch your career to a barrister. So you might be exempt from some of the academic and vocational parts of the process. Again, that depends on your field of practice. It depends on your number of years of experience and all that. Once you have done your barrister, the qualifying part of your barrister, then again, you're bound by a different set of code of conduct. So one other thing I would like to explain here is, when I first came in, I was like, what is a solicitor? What is a barrister? Why do they have like 2 names to something which sounds very much as okay, lawyer? So that is a very common question. Even till date, I've been asked, what is the difference by some people, even like lay people, or sometimes even legal people. So the difference is, a solicitor in the UK, they predominantly meet up with the clients. The barristers most often they don't. So they meet up with the clients. They understand the issue. They advise on the legal issue, the legal options available for a particular client. They do the drafting. They try anything and everything, the whole process, until before litigation commences. So if at all litigation is going to happen, because the courts, the system here highly advocates for alternate dispute resolution. So you have to, even if you do go for litigation, you have to demonstrate to the court you have tried all in your means to try and resolve a particular issue before taking the ultimate decision to come to the court. Because if you have not, there is a danger of considered to be a frivolous applicant, in terms of like trying to waste the court's time, or there might be some penal implications as well, if it's a really frivolous petition. That is where a solicitor's role is. They meet with the clients, they do the initial drafting, they do the initial consulting, advising, and checking out all the legal options. So once a solicitor has tried all that they could, and then despite all that, the case is progressing to litigation, then most often than not, so a barrister is engaged. So a barrister is the one who goes in and puts forward the case to the court. So solicitors do have rights of audience. However, in practice in the UK, it is not exercised to a large extent. Maybe to the smaller courts and to the tribunals, yes, but not to the higher courts. So a barrister is almost always engaged. So a barrister has minimal contact with the client. Yes, they would probably meet them before hearing and things like that, but they don't liaise with the client on like a day-to-day basis. It is the solicitor who does that, and the barrister represents the case in court. So that is the major difference. I've once tried explaining it as like, oh, I'm like an MBBS doctor, whereas like a barrister is like, like a one with an MS or something. Not necessarily, but broadly speaking, to explain to a layperson, I just said that once. So so that is why I say, like, a solicitor can, if you think, okay, this is not for me, I want to get into court like on a regular basis, then you can always switch from being a solicitor to a barrister. So as you can see, a barrister's code of conduct is slightly different. Duty to court in the administration of justice comes first. So even though you still act in the best interests of each of your clients, your higher duty is always to the court and to upholding the rule of law. So when I was reading for my solicitor exams, that is something that kind of stood out to me, because there were conduct issues when it was elaborated. You have to there were we were taught to function as like and even if there is a point of law that might be adversarial to my own case, I have a duty to disclose it. So I mean, if I think of it, I wouldn't want to do that because I want my client to win. But because I'm bound by the professional conduct more than anything, I do have to act in the best interest. So I have to tell my client, see, this is something I would have to disclose to the court. And if, for example, my client is not happy with it, then there would be issues of conflict of interest, because I'm obviously conflicting with my client's interest. And then there is issues of confidentiality and disclosure. So I know complying, I mean, professional conduct seems to be, I can just read it and ignore it, kind of a subject, but it actually is not. It's really important. And the relevance and importance is tested constantly in each of these examinations, because it is so easy to sometimes miss out hidden conduct issues. So this is something that we have to bear in mind at all times. And also, for example, if there's a litigant in person opposite to me, then if he is making a mistake, even if it's just something small, but me being a learned counsel, if I can take advantage of that situation, I'm stopped from doing that. I cannot do that. I have a duty to point out to the court that, oh, the litigant in person, he or she is, they don't have to do this, this is wrong or something. This is the right method. I being a learned person in the law, I have a duty to point that out and bring it to the attention of the court. So that is something that I found really interesting, because you have to put on too many hats at this point, because you have a duty to your client, you have a duty to to the court, and again, you have to make sure personally, for example, if you're acting for a firm or you're a sole practitioner, you have to make sure your ethics and code of conduct, to both of them, is not compromised anywhere. So again, everything else is pretty similar to the solicitor's code of conduct. So I will not really get into a lot of detail there. So once you've done that, you have to register with the Bar Council. So again, this is different for solicitors and for barristers. You have to have a practicing certificate. You have to have CPDs, like the continuing professional development. Again, you can be self-employed or employed if you choose to be a barrister, but mostly barristers are self-employed. Very minimal people are into employment. About 80% of barristers are self-employed. But to meet up with costs and just for functioning, better functioning, they group themselves and they hire chambers and they hire support staff and then they just take their individual appointments. Something once you have established a certain number of practice as a barrister, you could be called upon to take something called taking silk. So it's like something similar to a senior counsel in India. So then you are called the really famous QC, Queen's Counsel, and that is to summarize the next steps for becoming a barrister. So now I'm going to talk about the role of a property lawyer. So this is my current role. It does amuse me to think I'm practicing property, because when I started the whole process, I was like, oh, property and numbers. For some reason, I was not. That was not really my cup of tea. But I did surprise myself, because there are so many technicalities and nuances that you think initially that you refuse to look into, but when you're there in practice, it just pops it, and it is actually interesting. It is really interesting. So what do I do if anyone's interested at all? But this can be applied to any area of practice, because the core is the same, just that the technicalities and the procedures would differ depending on the practice areas. So a property lawyer, they deal with transactions which are called as completion. So basically it could be a sale, it could be a purchase, it could be a remortgage, it could be a lease. So again, there are two aspects to it, broadly speaking, residential and commercial. So residential is obviously places that an individual buys for their own residence, or a residential is also called when it is a buy-to-let property. So they're buying it for investment purposes. Even that is classified as residential, because the property by itself is residential in nature. So a commercial property, even though there's a commercial nature to it, when we talk about commercial property, that is something wherein a shop premises are bought either for lease, or they're even buying a freehold or a leasehold. So therein the work varies, even though it is property transaction, varies quite a lot, because a commercial property transaction is more intricate and more complex than a residential property transaction. So for a commercial, again, the contracts are totally different as opposed to a residential. Drawing up lease, you have to ensure it complies with the requirements of your client. For example, for the nature of business, there's no point if your client wants to run like an ice cream vending shop, and then there is a prohibition saying any vending machines are not supposed to be on the premises. So you have to ensure that each and every objective of your client is met out. So again, that is where your skills of legal drafting and writing come into place. So that is, broadly speaking, the two aspects of property lawyers' day-to-day transactions. Again, it is each residential or commercial is divided further into a freehold or a leasehold. So leaseholds are anything between literally a few months to, nobody really does few months for the cost involved, but a few years to like 999 years, which is essentially a really long time. Even though there's a period to it, it's a really long time. So leaseholds vary in terms of the duration, in terms of the purposes. A freehold is just indefinite. The one interesting thing I did find here is no land. I mean, I could be a owner of a property, but essentially I cannot be, the land ultimately vests in the Queen of England. So that is something I did find quite interesting when I started learning property transactions, because even though I'm the owner, once I pass away, obviously it goes according to intestate and all that, but ultimately it's the Queen of England who owns my house, if that makes any sense. So then there are newer ways of owning a property. So there are common holds and shared ownership, which is quite different, because property prices are quite high, especially in cities, for example, London, Birmingham, like, the Cardiff, like cities like that. Property prices are comparatively higher than the prices of other towns and other cities. So schemes such as, there are so many schemes so that people can get onto that property ladder, get their first home. So shared ownership help that. So I can just buy 25% of a property, and then when I have more ability, then I can buy another 10%. Then I just go on until I can maybe get the 100%. Or if I do not get into that 100%, but I still want to sell the property, so at that point, for example, if I'd acquired 40%, then I literally just sell the 40% and move on. So what is the practical role initially? Because because of the code of conduct issues, you cannot work on a file until you have established a client's identification accurately. How can you do that? Because not every client is known to you. Clients just walk in and things like that. So you have to make sure you comply with all the existing rules and all that. So clients are asked to sign client care. So until we have a properly filled and signed client care document with client's ID proof and address proof, we cannot work on a file. And there is something which is taken very seriously, which is anti-money laundering legislations. So you have to do checks on literally everyone. For example, if I'm doing property transaction, the potential parties are the buyer, the seller, the buyer solicitors, and the seller solicitors. And sometimes, obviously, for a leasehold, there will be a freeholder, and a freeholder will be represented by by a lawyer, or sometimes by a managing company or a managing agent. I do not want to get into the complexities, but these are the possible people that I might have to interact with. So at each point, I have to make sure everyone is complying with the laws. So obviously it's like a system where it's more self-regulatory. You have to ensure that you are sticking to your side of the conduct points at all times, and also that the other parties are doing complying with the same regulations. And so once you do that and you start with the work, you have to draft your contracts. So between the buyer and seller, you have to draft the transfers between the buyer and seller, or if it's a commercial agreement, a much more lengthier agreement. And also you have to investigate title. You have to make sure the client is getting a good title, so that there are no encumbrances, there are no issues. Sometimes there are rights of ways abandoning into the garden or something like that. There are something called flying freeholds, wherein only for example, like a balcony is only the part of the land, but the land actually underneath is not. So you have to be pretty careful. You have to look into the title and the title plan really carefully. And then there's something called placing searches. So they do the most common searches or a local authority search. So for example, I'm buying a house, then I have to contact the local authority to make sure that particular house has got all the planning permissions, building regulations, concerns, and things like that. And then there is environmental searches, then there are drainage and water searches. So these are the basic searches, and depending on each area or the client's requirements, you might have to do some additional searches. So once all these searches are done, the role of a property lawyer is to raise proper inquiries. I say proper because more often sometimes people ask totally irrelevant questions, so that is not looked upon nicely. It does not reflect nicely on the skills of a lawyer. So relevant inquiries have to be raised. Then once everything's come back, then you have to report to the clients, and more often to the lender as well. So then there is something called exchange and completion. So exchange of contracts, wherein the parties are bound to the terms of the contract, and then completion is the day when the whole transaction comes to an end. After this is done, you have to go back to the land registry and make sure your client's title to the property is registered properly. So this is in a nutshell the role of a property lawyer. So the skills that we would need in any role basically is interviewing and advising. Again, this is all tested on a very practical level in the examinations. Legal writing and legal drafting. Even I had a question. What is the difference between legal writing and legal drafting? I mean, to me, it looks pretty similar. So writing is basically any writing. For example, you'll have to write to the client to say, oh, can you please come in and sign the contracts? As simple as that. Or you might have to write a more legal letter to the other side solicitors, or if there's a litigation matter, you might have to incorporate even before the litigation process commence, not a legal notice, but maybe a letter accompanying that. So there are different legal writings. But whereas drafting is the court documents, like set forms and templates that you have to lodge before courts or before tribunals and things like that. So that is legal drafting. Research, we cannot emphasize the importance of research, and all this comes to us as students, I think, because when we are given all these assignments and seminars and presentations or moot courts, and you have to research and getting yourself acquainted with all the different platforms and apps and search engines is really important. And then practical problem solving, that is really important, because more often than not you are left in the spotlight with with something that you have to think on your feet, like really quickly, and come up with a practical pragmatic solution. So that is important. Negotiation, again, we can't stress this enough. Advocacy, wherein you put your points across, the relevant points, in a very concise yet effective manner. Managing workloads, that is quite important, because as we are all aware, a lawyer's work, you do have to burn midnight oil more often. So managing it and still having sorry excuse me. So managing your workload in a way that it does not affect you personally or your personal life, that is quite important. Ongoing learning is extremely important, because if you think, if I think, okay, I have done this course, I've read so many books, and I've passed this exam, yay, I'm done. No, I'm totally wrong, because it's an ongoing thing. Law changes ever so often, and then you have to make sure you are on top of it all the time. And networking, that is something relatively new, I would say, because I, for one, struggled with networking, because like ma'am, like Harita ma'am, like Kumuda ma'am, they have all pointed out, I have had a huge circle of friends right from my childhood. But interacting with your friends is different when you different from going out and networking for a totally different reason. That was a struggle, and I have had to work at it personally. And that is something which is really important, because you never know where an opportunity will rise. So you have to put yourself out there so that you are open to those opportunities. Otherwise, we do stand a risk of losing out on many things. And clients base is generally built by networking, or just interacting with like-minded people. You can learn a lot, things that you might not have a practical experience, you might learn through others' knowledge. So networking is very, very important, I would say. So what do firms generally look for? So for example, if you're coming here, you've done your master's, or you've come here like me, I was thrown into England. I was like, oh, why should I go into England? But I got engaged, and it so happened my husband was working here. So I literally came here. I mean, I wouldn't say I did not have a choice. It was a choice, but it wasn't like a very open choice, I would say. It was more like a circumstantial choice. So if you're here for whatever reason it might be, I would say make the best use of it, because that's all we can do with life. So what do firms look for if you're here? A strong foundation, that goes without saying. So pay attention to your lectures right now. Yeah, have all the fun in law school by all means, but also concentrate on the really important aspects of it. show that you have an inclination to learn and update yourself, because sometimes we'll find ourselves having to unlearn certain things and then learn to be on par with the practice expected out of you here. Have a positive outlook. That is not just for finding a job. Just have a positive outlook on anything. Work experience, again, like I just said earlier, it does not have to be legal, which is a very good thing that I think, because not always you can find a legal work experience, whether it's paid or unpaid. So for me, for example, when I came in, I found it extremely hard to land a job. It did get to me, but then a couple of people told me, especially one of my aunts here, she told me, even if you go into a shop, work as like literally work on the till or work as part of like a shop, you can still put that on your legal CV, because you learn to work as a team. You show that you are happy to work in any environment. You're not saying, oh, I'm sophisticated, I've got this law degree, I will not work here. You really demonstrate that you are capable of doing anything if you really want to do it. So things like that. And again, I could actually point out a lot of examples. I once got an acquaintance who said that she was working as a secretary. She was, some roles are looked down, basically culturally. I think in our heads we look down on some roles, but there is a takeaway. There is definitely a takeaway for anything. And as long as you can convert that experience to, say, for example, oh, I was a secretary, means that I can manage a lot of things. So I am a solicitor now, which means that experience I can manage, helps me manage my own things. For example, if it's a small firm, where they cannot give you all the admin support that you need, you can say, oh, my typing is excellent, I can do that myself. It's not an issue at all. Oh, I can work in as part of a team. I can be a head of a team as well because of this work experience. So diversity brings in a lot of advantage for you. And creative thinking, I have to mention my Rocky brother, who is also an alumni here. When 10 years back, or maybe 11 years back, I was still a student. He was my senior. So he was writing his statement of purpose for his master's in the UK. And he wrote, I wanted to be a pirate. And I was like, who writes that to, one of the top universities to the UK? I was like, seriously, has he gone out of his mind? But you know what? He got in. Maybe his creative thinking and writing made him stand out. So what is more important is, like, you have to stand out, because there are scores of applications, there are scores of people vying for a particular spot, be it academic or work wise. So how do you stand out? If you're academically accomplished, if you have so many internships under your belt, work experiences, good for you. But sometimes if you're not, I would say, like, don't think, oh, I don't have enough experience to go and apply for this. Sometimes some things doing out of the ordinary can land you that job or that place in an university. I would highly recommend for anyone here, go out, put yourself out, get yourself out on the streets, literally do whatever you can do. So for example, when I came in, I did not find a job, like I just said. So what did I do? I went in, I saw this role. It was a local charity who were looking out for volunteer advocates to work with people who were disabled. So basically, I had to interact one-on-one with people, which was very helpful, because when you come in, sometimes you can't grasp all the accents, because not everyone speaks the same way, especially when a person with some speaking disabilities talk. It's really hard to understand. So that actually kind of opened my eyes as to how the system functions in the UK, how people interact, where people come from, because I don't see people from my walk of life. I see someone from a different walk of life. Again, when I work with people with the small time offenders, it opens your eyes to the number of difficulties that a normal person who does not have the same upbringing as me has in just growing up to be a normal civil human being. So it opens your eyes personally. It gives you the experience to go out, and you can always, I can strongly say that any experience will help you to think on your feet, to act a certain way, and these are some things that the firms look for, obviously apart from the eligibility criteria which we'll have to meet, which would be academic qualifications and things like that. But this is what I would summarize as the transition of my life from India to UK has taught me. If you have a good support system, use them by all means. If you don't, then just you be your support system. And if anyone has any questions, yes, Bhagavati, spot on. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. And not just now, if I would say, like, one more thing I would just like to point out, being alumni, like, we are always available. Maybe there are time issues and things like that, but we can always, like, I'm talking on behalf of literally all the pass outs from SOL. Like I said, my own batchmate, he's into JAG, if somebody is interested, because not many people are into that line of field. So you could, it's worth trying to get in touch with them and asking, would you be able to guide me? For example, if someone wants to qualify in the UK, please reach out to me. I would be happy to help. My partner, he's also, when we set up this firm, we were like, when we've founded our firm, it was a totally new experience, but risk it, go for the risk, because end of the day, if you do lose, you just lose. That's as simple as that, but you gain a lot. So if you have any questions on how to qualify here, please just get in touch with me. And I'm pretty sure, like, we have so many people in so well established roles all around the world. The world is in your hands right now, so please talk to your tutors. They might be able to put you in touch, or just reach out. LinkedIn, Facebook, I'm not on anything else but just reach out. You might never know how helpful that might turn out to be. So I would say, like, thank you very much for this opportunity, and all the very best.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Mayappan, I can hear you.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very insightful session. And before we could take the questions, I would like to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, Dr. T.S.N. Sastry, sir, to give us a few words for this webinar.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm extremely happy that the talk has been arranged on a very important topic on practicing commercial law. Law, being a very pertinent science, developing compared to the previous generations or previous issues are considered. Please excuse me because I'm just underwent a teeth operation, so I'm not able to speak. But since you have said, I'm just able to try to say a few words. It's a very pertinent to note that commercial law or corporate law or whatever the name, or business law, whatever the name we give it to it, it's more important, more relevant in the contemporary changing economic globalized era. We had a globalization which started in its fifth phase now, or fourth phase, whatever it may be. Many people think that globalization is new, but globalization is in its fourth phase now in international law. And this phase is known to everybody because this phase is interacting with the individuals directly by the expansive jurisprudence of group rights of human rights philosophy, which is very important. When that context takes place, the restructuring that has taken place in the world, the gap and the other perspectives that have come in the international scenario, like WTO, which has advocated a single tax policy within the nations locally, regionally, internationally. This is, we are calling a GST in India, but whereas in international law presumption, it is used as single entry tax goods point. That's nothing new. GST, where the previous governments of Union of India wanted to introduce but could not introduce, that has been introduced now. The entire credit goes to our former Prime Minister, P.V. Narasimha. He opened the economy. Unfortunately, the next 10 years, it is, whatever it may be, it is politics, we cannot say anything. The same finance minister who continued as prime minister for 10 years could not carry forward the reforms that he opened the economy. And now that is being carried forward. That's all. It's not that a government is doing something undo or anything. We are sticking to the policy perspectives of international law. So that the single goods entry point tax that reduces competitiveness between the states. That is the reason why, in line with tax terrorism that is known India. Now, the 2 days back, the Honorable Prime Minister of India has declared honest taxpayer honoring policy. I am saying all these changes are very, very vital and relevant for commercial law. And we are concerned with commercialization, particularly in COVID-19. We have been provided the greatest opportunity is the economic globalization that is taking place is expanding further in its wings to expand various aspects. That is the reason why day before yesterday, at last, the Bar Council of India opened its eyes and said, introduce mediation practices as an important course of study. All the time, entire world is thinking of arbitration. I'm not for arbitration at any point of time. Because arbitration, if we see as a student of domestic law or as a student of international law, because I taught in international law, we call it as pacific settlement of disputes. I taught this paper for about 10 years in Pondicherry University to my international relations students, not to law students. A number of students from MBA and other departments used to come and take this paper. As a law teacher working in an interdisciplinary department, I used to teach this type of courses. So, where mediation is very, very important, not arbitration. I tell you the reason why. Last year, I delivered a lecture in an arbitration. Arbitration is a course, but I didn't talk much. It is available in YouTube because I didn't like to develop a course only on arbitration. You have to develop more on mediation. Last year, the Supreme Court of India conducted a conference on mediation in conjunction with Delhi University Law Faculty. I was one of the invitees. Unfortunately, due to some urgent work in the university, I could not take place, though I prepared. I am talking this because 2 days, just 2 days, the Singapore International Mediation Convention is coming into force just 2 days this month. 17th or 18th, I'm sure of the dates, I think, or it might have come on 12th or 13th. I'm not sure of the dates, please don't point me. But this month, either last week or next week, it is coming into force. And it is going to be one of the important events in international legal regime. Now, the Supreme Court of India, thanks to Honorable Chief Justice of India, who has insisted that mediation should be done. Why? Because arbitration. In fact, many people came to me, sir, start an arbitration council, we will establish. My own students told me, I was just dodging. And heart in heart, I'm not interested for arbitration panel, but I'm interested in those might be there in this lecture now listening to people. If they come for a mediation center, within minutes I will take the permission of the bodies and get it approved as a first law university in the country. The difference between arbitration and mediation is arbitration is just a replica of judicial settlement where you engage arbitrators, select arbitrators, and providing employment to some people who doesn't have, or honorable judges who retired to spend their knowledge and time to the society come as arbitrators, or international arbitrators, which is high expensive compared to cost court. Open court is cheaper than arbitration. If we see private international law, an Australian advocate, I told Dr. Kumar Ratna, I showed the book also, that my profession is ethics. That the advocate has written that how busy the advocates are in arbitration and how the companies are suffering with and how they prefer mediation. Mediation is very important. Why? Because mediation is party friendly. It doesn't require number of arbitrators or qualified experts. It requires friends and others who can come and settle the disputes. And this settlement mechanism, we are unfortunately in India, I'm not bringing politics or anything. As a law student, I'm teaching purely law. We have great literature in ancient India. Either you take Sangam literature or you take Harappa literature or you take Aryan literature, any literature of India. We have excellent literature. In Jimuta Vahana's Vyavhara Vyapara Daksha, which is the best contract act than the Indian Contract Act or World Contract Acts. Beautifully architectured contractual perspective. We don't read our own literature. Unfortunately, in India, we think international is doing, America is doing, Russia is doing, Europe is doing. We are bringing, thanks to the present government of India, which is continuously advocating self within the culture of India. We have to look into the literature. If we see the Sangam literature, for example, if you take Tirupura, the great saint, has in 2 sentences written how disputes should be settled. But if we read, lot of aspects of it. So, this type of aspects, if students are taught at the postgraduate level, we are reviewing the syllabus. I am requesting my colleagues, don't come out with the old perspectives of syllabus, come out with the indigenous perspective of syllabus. We have almost completed our LLB syllabus. Hope within a month, before starting the classes, we will update. So the lecture delivered by Ginny on the importance of commercial law as a practice is an excellent topic. I welcome, I appreciate. I heard the lecture half of it. But this is good. Students should think of the commercial law perspective, which is very, very important, which is very, very concentrated and most concerned. Mediation has to be focused, which is cost effective, because access to justice, whatever may be the perceptions of access to justice. Access to justice main aim is not accessing to court, accessing to get the relief at the earliest. If I file a case, I should get the judgment within a month or 2 months or 3 months, maximum 6 months. But in the present prevailing situations of our country, we all know, well, millions of cases are pending before the courts. When I file the judgment, maybe my grandson may get, file a case, my grandson may get the judgment. So where is access to justice then? We don't blame the judiciary. We have to take holistic perspective in which we, the law students, we, the law schools, have a responsibility to conduct mediation, room in industry, thanks to the, I don't want to go into the details or the debate that is going on, but as a teacher, as an academician, if I see the national education policies outwardly outlook framework, which says universities should be cut off from affiliation and they should be campuses only, a good idea. How far it will be implemented, we don't know. What will happen, we don't know. Like Western universities, if you are confined to a university and no uni-faculty university, that's again advocated, no law university will be there if that is seriously implemented after 20 years. It will be only universities. So the management department, the commerce department, the law department, the economics department, psychology department, these are the top most important departments, join together, establish a mediation and establish the mediation centers and invite industries. That's what I was telling my colleagues. The commercial law department can provide crores of rupees to the university by their consultation, but no department in the country is yielding money. They are only teaching. You meant somebody asked me, Professor, you say that we should earn money? Definitely. It is not earning money. It is doing service for which you are rendering your pay, so that what happens, university will become rich, community will become rich, judiciary's burden will take care, government's burden will take care, and ultimately the individual faculty will become rich and famous. Instead of a few experts traveling, the real expert who studied the subject is coming out. He is not exposed. Or I come at morning 10 o'clock, I teach till 5 o'clock, I go. You are not known to anybody. This perception we should stop. This I am telling all the young teachers also in the country. Many doesn't like my policy. But that is the real policy which Harvard or any other school, Oxford are doing, which we are not doing. Why I am saying tomorrow, if Harvard Business School or Oxford Business School or Stanford Business School comes in, they will overtake us if the new education policy is implemented. They will overtake, then your universities will be lock, stock, barrel. Remember, yesterday my colleague Srinivasan was saying, sir, whatever you said about higher education in the third para of the ministry document, it is verbatim quoted. I said, I have submitted 28 pages to Government of India. Unfortunately, in India, policy makers doesn't put academicians. They reviews. Plagiarism we talk, but plagiarism takes place everywhere in India. We have to, why I'm saying, because to enlighten and enthusiastic young students like Jenny. The other day, another student from the university has given space lawyering. I could not, because of my ill health, I'm not able to take part continuously. But since I'm working on the system, I thought I will listen this lecture. Silently, I was listening. These students are our torch bearers. Always, our students are our torch bearers. I always student pro teacher. I never harm any student in my life. But I'm strict in the class. I'm strict in the university. I want discipline. For that sake, I go for anything. I don't compromise with rules and regulations. But I always say, I'm not praising myself. My students hate me when they study in the university or in the department. But when they go out, they come and I receive every day mails, appreciations. It's not that I'm great. At least I could create some young minds who think differently. That is the objective of a teacher. And in that regard, I appreciate Jenny for coming forward and delivering the lecture. And I request at least my colleagues in the department will open the eyes in synchronization with the lecture that how commercial law department can become marketable by themselves. That should be the aim. I conducted the lecture. I have conducted 1,000 people participated in my lecture. My university is not great. Yeah, online, anybody, n number of people can listen. 1 million people also can join if you put it in YouTube. How many heard is not important. How many took the synthesis and succeeded? Because we have a saying in India, any language. வீட்டுக்கு ஒரு பூவு கொடுத்தா ஈஸ்வரனுக்கு ஒரு மாலாயிரம். So if each one donates one flower, that becomes a garland to God. Definitely. So by these lectures, if we have 500, now today 265 participants are there. So maybe I consider 150 or 175 are students. If 2 students follow this and establish a commercial center, I tell you, marvelous. You get this money. We have to learn. Teacher is always a learner. Ayan Shashank, I'm planning to contact him now to invite him to our university. He is just 24 years old from Gurgaon. Ayan Chawla. He's from Gurgaon. He's just 24 years as on today. He started, what was his education? 9th standard, he stopped his education. 13th year, he started his career as a business person with 10,000 rupees investment from his mother. He has been appreciated by the Honorable Prime Minister last year as the youngest. Today, his properties of the company were 36 crore rupees. That is $5 billion. $5 million worth of assets he has. Now, I did PhD. I did the commercial law. I did LLM. What I contribute. Whereas he is contributing to the society, to the state, by giving him. What was his education? 9th class, discontinued. So, conducting lectures, participation in lectures, all that is part of our job, which we do. 1,000 participated, 10,000 participated. But in the 1,000, one person at least shaped the succeed. That should be the spirit. I'm happy that we have a huge alumni in our university. And maybe I request not only Ginny or the previous student who delivered the lecture from A, or many settled abroad, please come back to your alma mater, share your views, shape your younger generations, help the departments. Because like Western, we always say Harvard is great. Harvard, 80% of the budget is given by its alumni, not by government. In India, if you ask 10 rupees from your alumni, he will say, your alma mater. Today you are maybe multi-billionaire, you do 10 rupees to your university or 1% of the income that you have in a year, the university will feed 100 more people. This should be the type of articulation that we should come in. We all praise our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Please read Mahatma Gandhi's views on higher education. Mahatma Gandhi made it very clear that higher education should be completely left to self-financing by the people. State should not spend even 1 rupee on higher education. Read. We don't read and we praise our Mahatma. We praise our father of India. He said up to 12th or undergraduation or up to that professionalization, self-earning money, skill development. That's what government of India and state governments are now calling. It's advocated by our father of the nation. Skill-based education should be funded by government. Higher education, research, completely yours. But unfortunately, in India, even after I complete 1 PG, 2 PG, PhD, I still ask government what fellowship you do. Then how state will develop? There are downtrodden people, social justice perspective. But that commercial law, the social responsibility, CSR policy, clearly advocates that should be done. And in that regard, I think this lecture should eye-open the students and the faculty that we take the lead within 1 year. Whether I am Vice Chancellor or not, it is immaterial. I contributed this much money to the department by my consultancy. That's excellent. That should be done. And that is the purpose. It is not money. It is the service that we do to the society. Access to justice will help. With these few words, sorry I have spoken much. An intruder, maybe, but I thought I should speak out my thoughts very openly, not afraid at this stage of the life. So I wish and I request, I'm very happy for the department to organize the lecture, and I truly am the faculty, and I definitely sincerely welcome and wish and thank the student alumni, Miss Jenny, for giving a good and wonderful talk. It's a very eye-opener dealing with various aspects, and commercial lawyering is very important. Even in post-graduation, in undergraduation, we have to teach side by side. Now, as I'm telling always, COVID has given us a opportunity for us to take some skills which we cannot take in the class, maybe uploaded in the university website, which we can do. Anyhow, we are establishing a high sophisticated web forum within a month or so in the campus, and we are trying to develop the facilities further. So that comes in, we become one of the best information technology university like IITs in the country. In a law university, we are trying to take care of that. We will develop it, and so more and more such type of lectures. Now classes have been started online. So after class hours, maybe once in a week, the teachers and the department can take interactive session. It's not only lectures where one person gives few questions. We don't have time. 1 or 2 questions are answered. I don't want one. Organize a panel discussion, organize eminent people, organize our own students who are in various fields like commercial aspects, doing business, this, that, everything. Ask them to share their stories. That itself is a lesson. We need not do anything. Every department should do. Constitutional law, every department. Criminal law, every department. Law is such a subject. We should be thankful to God for giving us birth to know law. It's a justice, that it is a subject which bestows everybody. And if we can pull the legs of justice by commenting or whatever it may be, we are the first sinners. This is my view. And you always, and don't think too much also. Because too much thinking, psychologically, if you are too abide by law, this is a problem. I'm telling. But too much thinking, too much engrossing into the subject makes you fearful. Your heart doesn't permit to do wrong. Sometimes we may be committing wrongs which may not cause harm to anybody, which harm to you personally. That should not be the policy. Law is the law, justice, God, and we should respect and extremely happy. And I hope this university, the faculty, the students of its, particularly the student community, who are the torch bearers of any university, will take the flag forever high. I wish that should be continued. The flag should fly high, and I wish Jenny will. If I don't know whether she is in Chennai or outside, If you are outside, not in Chennai, you can, whenever you can come. I will be very pleasure to meet my alumni always. We will discuss. And like this, you can create an alumni group, which I'm talking. We have tried to create alumni groups to frame rules. I'm telling this because alumni are coming to deliver lectures. But some alumni have recently wrote, like association, you give us a room, you give us this, you give us the, university can do all these things. We are not, it's not a grand association for you to sit. It is an association to contribute. It's an association to guide. It's an association to lead. It is a partner in progress is Alliance of Alumni. So if you are all coming, I would be very happy. In fact, I request Harita, Ranjit, or Dr. Balaji conduct an alumni day after COVID is over, or an online alumni day with some people sharing their experiences. That would be very great, and I wish all the best and all the success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very warm welcome, and it's a humbling experience and a pleasure indeed to come back to your to the alma mater and to get a chance to interact with all of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very inspiring, your words. Thank you, sir. Now, can we move on to the question and answer session? Jenny ma'am, you are muted yourself. Can you kindly unmute yourself, ma'am?
Sure, Mayappan. I'm ready. Yes.
So I've just noted down a few questions which were asked in the chat box. So I will just tell them.
Yes, please.
First person, Mr. Arvind CS, he wants to know whether IELTS is mandatory to clear to come there for the UK for the exam.
For the exams, no, it is not. But if you are doing a course, then yes.
Okay. Another participant, Mr. P. Dinesh Kumar, he wants to know how much it would cost to become a solicitor in UK and with regard to the course materials and the exam fees.
That is a very subjective question, depending on the number of attempts or or not. But assuming you're doing it in all in one shot, clean shot, it should take you about 6 nearly 6, at least 6, I think. Especially if you consider travel and accommodation, it will go up.
Okay. And the next question which he asked was, how does UK law regulate soliciting by legal professionals? Where to draw the line between networking and soliciting?
Okay, that is two different things. Networking is to basically build your network. You're not going and asking for a job, or you're not saying, oh, come and engage me for your needs. So that is two different things. Networking is more of a social thing with a maybe a productive outcome. By means of productive outcome, it's not always to do with your profession. It could be to do with something to influence you as a person, so which might ultimately end up in you becoming a better lawyer, better person. So those two are different.
Okay, and the next question he asked was, can a property lawyer's fees be charged under anti-money laundering regulations if the proceeds of the crime is in a crime involved in the property goes unreported?
Just to make sure I've got the question right, he wants to know what happens if a lawyer is paid and then they come to know that this money is from some proceeds of a crime. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to know whether a property lawyer's fees can be charged under anti-money laundering rules if the property is out of a crime.
Okay, I don't get the first part, to be honest, because if it is a proceeds of a crime, if I know it at the very outset, I can't even take that case up. I have a duty to disclose that even if I have a strong suspicion, even if I don't know for sure if it's out of proceeds of crime, because let's be realistic, nobody's going to come and say this is out of proceeds of a crime, before they engage a lawyer. But if I have my suspicions, then I have a duty to not blow the whistle so that the offender is alerted of it. But I have to tell my compliance officer. For example, if I'm in a firm, every firm should have an AML officer. So I have to go and tell them. Or if there is not an officer of that capacity, I have to tell one of my senior partners, and they will take the call to inform the relevant authorities. So if I do have a suspicion and I have acted on it, then I'm protected. But if not, if I think, or there are strong, clear indications that something is amiss here, and if I choose to ignore, then I might be sanctioned by the SRA.
Okay, another person, Mr. R. Ilango, he's asking a question like, is there any age restrictions for an Indian advocate to start legal profession in the United Kingdom?
No, as far as I'm aware, no, there's not. Actually, during the duration of my preparations and examinations, I have seen a few people quite advanced in their career stages, like they taking up the exams. So no.
Okay, and he also wants to know what is the normal duration to finish the exam in UK? That is the Qualified Lawyers Transfer Scheme exam which you were talking about.
So the QLTS, you have to do the MCT. Like I said, the exams, both the MCT and the OSCE happens only twice a year. So before you finish you'll have to finish the MCT before you move on to the OSCE. And the time needed for preparation, I think it depends. It varies from individual to individual. For me, I had a job and I had a child, and like she was much younger when I started the preparation. So I needed more time because I did not have enough time. So for me, I took a longer time, like a couple of months. But there are people who spend maybe 1 or 2 months and they still manage to crack. So ultimately, it depends on how much time you can allot for your preparations.
Okay, another person, Mr. Varghese, he wants to know whether a court can force a solicitor to reveal confidential information about clients, and how long such confidentiality lasts for, and how do you maintain office confidentiality?
Okay, there is something called confidentiality, and along with that, parallelly, there is something called disclosure. So you have to make sure it's balanced. Ideally, your client's confidentiality is very important. But if you know they are going against the law, or they're going to commit a crime, or they're going to endanger someone else in the process, then if you're aware of it, your duty of confidentiality is sidestepped by your duty of disclosure. So you have a duty to disclose that. So the court cannot really sanction you for if you have disclosed some confidential information of your client, just so you avoid a greater harm. So the court cannot penalize you. On the contrary, if you are aware of something which could adversely affect someone else, or for example, if the client is playing up with the court system with not disregard for the law, then you have a duty to disclose, actually. So
Okay,
could you please repeat the later part of the question for me?
Yeah, how long such a confidentiality should last, and how do you maintain office confidentiality?
Okay, office confidentiality, the firms have to have strict measures in place. For example, if I have work devices, they have to provide me, if they are providing me with remote working options, they have to provide me with devices, so that my personal things do not get onto the works laptop, or the work stuff does not come onto my system. There are restrictions in place, as in, like, we cannot pass on our clients' details to like a third party. Even though it is relevant to the case, we have to obtain permission from the clients. So that is to do with office confidentiality, and all the files are supposed to be held in storage for 6 years from the time of completing a matter. So in the next 6 years, we can charge the client, but we have to keep those informations obviously confidential, and also we have to keep them, maintain those records for the next 6 years at least. As regarding how long your client's confidentiality works, you have to, it's once you've taken it, you don't really have to disclose it, because any information provided is confidential information between the lawyer and the client.
Okay, ma'am, and there is another question regarding international commercial arbitration. Mr. P. Dinesh Kumar, he wants to know how advantageous is it to choose London as a neutral seat for international commercial transactions?
Okay, London is being a widely sought out place for arbitration these days, mainly because the laws are widely applied. The laws of England is widely applied. I will not be getting into a lot of detail because I am not from a arbitration background basically, but generally it's advantageous because the medium of instruction, as most laws are, it's in English, and a lot of contracts are being chosen to apply laws of England in Wales.
Okay. And another participant, Ms. Rishi, she wants to know, is moving to UK right after a UG degree here without any support from relatives or anyone there?
Is it possible? Is that the question?
Yeah. She's asking whether it is possible, or is it a right decision to move?
That is a very personal, I mean, I'm not sure how I can answer that. As long as you're confident to face the obstacles on the way, anything is possible, definitely, yes. But yeah, you'll have to be better planned. You'll probably have to think of other ways of supporting your, expenses while in the UK. Most like students can work for a limited number of hours, so he or she could, I think it's a she you mentioned, so she could consider taking up a job to support the living expenses.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for the Q&A session, ma'am. And can we move on to the vote of thanks?
Yes, please.
Yes. I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Ranjit sir to propose a vote of thanks for our event.
Thank you, Mayappan. So I thank the university for giving this opportunity. Am I audible? Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I thank this university for giving this opportunity to propose this vote of thanks, especially on a day where we could see a student sparkling with high intense knowledge and giving different dimensions of a commercial practice and also practice in different aspects. So firstly, I'd like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who not only permitted us, but also encourages us regularly. And also for this good lecture he came and gave in between, and which was not which we didn't expect, and it came as a bonus for today's webinar. Thank you, sir. Secondly, I'd like to thank Jenny. Jenny, who's a speaker in spite of her busy schedule. She has agreed to come to speak today. And I remember Jenny as a student. After a long time, I'm seeing her. And she, according to me, she was a very polite, calm, but at the same time, she used to, she was very, concentrating on her classes. We, as teachers, we used to like to show Jenny as a role model for those students who are notorious by telling that you have to learn a lot from her. And that was the kind of student she was. And Kumudha ma'am has spoken a lot about her. Harita ma'am also has given. So for constraints of time, I like to say that we have to learn a lot from Jenny. From even during a student's days, she was really a very talented person. And we are happy that she has become a source of inspiration to many of our alumni. I'd like to thank her for the excellent lecture which she has given. She has taken every important aspect of commercial practice and also practice other areas of practice in UK, which our alumni, which our present students would have noted, and they would surely be taking this as an important aspect in deciding their career. I'm sure they will disturb Jenny whenever they get an opportunity, so that she would be encouraging her, guiding them, and also mentoring them in the process of application to practice in UK. As our Vice Chancellor said, this is globalization. So you cannot say I will practice only in India. You have to even think about transnational practice, and also you have to become a lawyer for multinational clients. So these kind of lectures, like what Jenny gave today, is a very, very important thing. And I am sure that we need to do a lot of such lectures. And I'm sure many of our other alumni also would have taken leave from today's lecture, and they will also come forward. I would like to thank our HOD Kumada ma'am, who was very interested in a lot of webinars, bringing in a lot of alumni. And she was special thanks to Kumada ma'am, especially for selecting Jenny and inviting her. So I'm a little envious about Kumada ma'am because she had a lot of opportunity to interact with Jenny for the last 10 years, which professors like me did not have. So anyhow, I thank Kumada ma'am that at least from now onwards we get a chance to talk to such great alumni like Jenny who would be contributing for our students, present students to our institution academically also. So my special thanks to Director Balaji sir. He's a very calm, at the same time he's a very, very talented person who's using all his talents, all his good office for doing a lot of academic programs. And this encouragement itself is a great source for us to do more and more. I thank Balaji sir for that. My special thanks to my colleague Harita ma'am, who's also working a lot. In fact, you would have seen the nice brochure which has been designed by Harita ma'am. And a special thanks to our LLM students. Many of them are working. Thanks to Mayappan, and also thanks to Abhishek Castro, Bhagavati, Deepika, and all the other LLM students who have worked very hard. Because today you are hearing the lecture from Jenny, she has worked very hard. But in the background, behind the scenes, many of them are there. So my sincere thanks to all of them. My thanks to the UG students also who have always been helpful in conducting, disseminating this webinar to various people, making them to join, and making this this program very, very successful. My sincere thanks to the participants. Being a Sunday, that too afternoon during the cutting across the lunch time, they were all listening to the lecture word by word. I'm sure many of them would have taken notes of it also, so that they would be able to use it in their future. So I thank all the participants without whom this program would not have been successful. My special thanks to all the faculties and my dear students. And once again, I thank Jenny. And Jenny, this is only the beginning. I'm sure in future you need to come again and again in different aspects, not only in the area of career practice, but also we can take certain subject-oriented topics also, where your expertise would be very grateful to our students. I'm personally thanking you because I'm really excited today after seeing you after a long time, hearing from you after a long time, and this is something great. Thank you.
Abraham, Ashok also, library. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashok sir. Thanks a lot for your support. Thanks, Darwin, for the link which you have, still now it's very live, very clear. Thank you very much.
If I may, can I please take a minute to extend my thanks too, please?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Ranjit sir, it was, I cannot explain, put into words the joy I have in coming back. And even though it's virtual, interacting face to face with all of you, each one of you, I have been in lectures under each one of you. Shastri sir has been very limited. It was probably only a handful of lectures. But I am extremely humbled and pleased. I repeat this at the cost of repetition, yes. But it has been a great honor and a privilege to come back
Hello.
to the roots. And it's such a joy to hear my professors, again after 10 long years. And I thank all my batchmates who have extended their support as well. I thank you so much for that. And thank you, Abhishek, Bhagavati, and Mayappan. Abhishek even volunteered to be my alarm clock because I was like, on a Sunday morning, I got up at 6 o'clock, which is a miracle if you will ask my husband and daughter. So that is how much I love this institution and the people affiliated with it. So thanks again. And it was not just a namesake. If you do have any queries, please feel free to reach out. It might take a while for me to come back, but I will definitely come back to you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Harita, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Well,
much, ma'am.
I'm actually excited, as Ranjit sir told, and also surprised because I honestly tell that you are in such a big position to see. I'm so happy to see that my student is in such a big position because you have improved a lot from that student days. Thank you. Thank you so much for sparing that time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, ma'am. Anytime.
Definitely for our commercial law special lectures, you will be invited more. That's
An absolute honor, ma'am.
yes.
Jenny, thank you very much. We'll meet up now and then. Okay.
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely. Take care, all of you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, sirs and
Thank you so
ma'am.
much, ma'am.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
Later.